Thank you, Maxfield, aka Max. Max is an old friend of mine, and I met him around the same time I met Jason when we were haunting Belltown in the early 2000s. And it's so great to have his words and his creative energy here with you all. Now up next, Isla Maketa is the author of Polska, 1994 editions checkpointed, and co-author of Clear Out of the Static in Your Attic, a writer's guide for turning artifacts into art from Write Bloody. She earned an MFA in creative writing at Goddard College in Port Townsend, Washington, and has served on the boards of Seattle City of Literature and Hugo House. Isla makes her home in Seattle, where she writes fiction, poetry, and book reviews. You can find her on the web at ilamaketa.com. And here with some feminist fiction that breaks silences, please welcome Isla Maketa.
Thank you so much, Ariel, for having me here tonight. I've got to tell you, as a parent of a young child who has just survived a pandemic, as we all have, it feels so good to be here in community with you all tonight. Thank you so much for being here. One of the things I want to note too before we get to talking about the writing, tonight you've probably all been getting a lot of emails about Give Big. Spaces like Hugo House exist because of your donations. If you have and can support any organization that you love, remember that we are what makes it. I was only on the board of Hugo House because somebody said, do you know anybody who'd want to be on the board? And I was like, it's your labor, it's your money, and it makes a difference. It makes stuff like this happen. Tonight, I'm going to read you the introduction to my new novel, which is called Naked Driving to the Witch's Graveyard. And it is, doesn't need a lot of introduction because I'm literally going to read you the introduction. So if you don't know what's happening, it's because it's just started. But yeah, it's feminist fiction. So let's see how this goes. Tonight we gather in this auditorium as the cinders of our culture rain down around us, surrounded by the ashes of everything we tried to build and everything we needed to tear down. Each one of you has come to this event with a vision for what we can do together, how we can build from this nothing toward a more perfect future. Having read my articles and watched my videos, knowing the expertise afforded by my degrees, you invited me to stand on this stage to inspire or challenge you with an analysis of where we are. But you already know where we are and what I have to say about it. If you'll indulge me, my gift to you tonight is filling the chairs beside me with a small group of women who were once my friends. Together, we, the survivors, will tell you the story of what happened to a handful of girls in a town called Paradise. Bear with us. We cannot collectively imagine a new future without understanding the past, and children experience the truths of the world with a rawness we too often fail to appreciate. We wish we could forget what we knew and felt then, but we hope what we tell you tonight will help with what's to come. Ours is the story of the world our parents built using the best of what they had to create a future for their beloved children. You may think you know how it was and how we got here, but while the sun still sleeps, and before we mix the ashes of now to form the cement of what comes next, let us tell you how the best of intentions can go awry when the tools are flawed, the angles of the plan even slightly askew. You laughing over there? We know who you want us to be, the crones who had their chance, but we will not be silenced. Our generation, X, was meant to be forgotten, but we have magic yet, and we have earned the right to speak. Don't be afraid. We vow not to use our power to distort the truth, to control your experience as ours was once controlled. If you know where we come from, you may think we are about to tell you about the lynching, the shooting sprees, the quadruple homicide, or the cult that infiltrated our hometown in the years we were becoming women. Really, those are only weeds that found purchase in the fertile valley among our peaceful rolling hills. Instead, we shall tell you the story of a town where a taste for unquestioned serenity made those kind of things possible. We've traveled far enough now in distance for those of us who could leave, and in time for all of us, that the memories of who we were and why are starting to fade from everything but our yearbooks, gathered dusty in attic shelves and dank basements. If we could open for you the purple and orange covers full of mostly black and white photos You'd see all the rural beautiful faces, posed gauzy for those who could afford it, in the outfits we loved best, each one a mother's child longing to be loved. It's easy to forget also how much then shaped now, to gloss over the stories that we did not repeat and no one preserved on these yearbook pages or in any other record. You would never know that that one raped our friend, and that one ran someone over. That one was shot in the face by drug dealers out of state. That one murdered a man on her doorstep because she was nice to him. That one made it to Broadway, and that one's a mom who never left town. That one joined the CIA, allegedly. One sold pharmaceuticals and another played pro ball. Astrophysicists, exchange students, the special ed kids we never saw except in a hospital hallway 30 years later when our parents were dying. Missing from the final We Made It Together photo of all those who attended all 12 years is the kid who died of cancer, the one hounded out of school for being gay, the girl killed by a moose. Those who stayed versus those who left, decisions made for us based on the sizes of our parents' worlds. Some escaped to the city in search of something bigger. One slipped into the fields, only to be seen again at her infant's funeral. So many now untraceable, nicknames lost to obituaries of whole families who died younger than their genes would suggest. Each of us archetypes who thought ourselves individual, and most lost to the amalgamations of memory. In recounting for you tonight, it's already easy to feel like everyone we once knew, everything we once knew, is made up. You might think so too, because in prison or dead, many have left no online footprint in a word-of-mouth town. And you can't ask about them because everyone will be whispering why. We will change the names of the living anyway, because there are too many who will be remembered for who they were. Let them keep that last bit of privacy, at least for the sake of their parents, who probably still don't know. What we can't change are the things that happened, or the fact that we knew each other then, well, not always since. The fact that, in a town based on acceptance, no one taught us how to say no. We will tell you the events of the year we turned 14 as faithfully as we can. How could we ever really know what happened to Sarah that night in the wheat field? Though they stalked us too. Boys tipping quarters for smiles, strange men photographing us, teachers seating us in their laps. Whispers, glimpses, rumors that shaped the way we held our ripening bodies, the power we thought we wound around our adolescent fingers, the things we instinctively knew but could not be trusted to say. How could we predict what Rachel would do, the ways that night in her basement would change us all forever? And how could we see Julie would hold up against all the obstacles life was about to throw in front of her, that even when we lost her, she'd never lose herself, until she did. Tonight in this auditorium, we will finally speak to you the words we might have said then if anyone was listening, relate the things we did without ever knowing why. Maybe you'll understand the dangers before morning overtakes us. Your only risk is your time. We have nothing left to lose. But before we tell you how it began, imagine the glorious possibilities of the middle. When the sun set on prairie summers and our parents were asleep, boys and girls piled together into cabs of low pickup trucks and aging sedans, headed past the green wheat on our way out of town. Twisting and writhing to get off our clothes as the driver tried to stay on the curving road, we wound east toward the mountains. 4 or 5 or 6 of us in one cab, we held the wheel for Mandy as she pulled her mud-stained t-shirt over her head. Too young to drive anywhere else, this farm girl could wrestle a tractor as easy as the small, rusty pickup she sometimes borrowed late at night. We helped her shift gears as she peeled her underwear from her ass. It was legal to drive topless, and shedding our shirts made us feel as strong and free as the winds across the rolling hills. Being so close to what we'd long sought to see, to look directly at each other's bodies would have been too much. Thus, there was no groping of the soft flesh pressed against ours, some of it becoming harder in the friction. But we did allow ourselves an innocent lean as we turned up the dirt road that cleaved the wheat field, leading all the way up the hill to the circle of evergreens shrouding the witch's graveyard. We piled out of our vehicles at the top of the hill and gathered naked in a circle with our cans of pilfered beer, those who had failed to fully strip in the car stumbling out of their last bits of clothing. Jason led a cheers to our arrival, raising high his drink with a mighty yawp that shook his long curls, and we bolstered our courage for whatever primal right awaited our silvery skin under the moon. But no one had planned a primal right, thought beyond a stack of booze and getting here in the first place. So we withered into the wild. Mandy, her pixie cut white in the moonlight, and Paul, skater flip bangs hiding his mischievous glances, mounted a bench and began practicing soliloquies. Danielle's golden spiral perm flew out behind her like a cape as she trailed Derek, who held her hand tight in his strong fist down the hill past the baby's stones before tumbling behind bushes to touch and be touched. Nicole leapt like the ballerina she was off to the ring of tall pines to paw and kiss Jennifer, who'd woven her way around tree trunks as gracefully as if they blocked a basketball hoop. Ever a threat to his future fertility, Mikey climbed the flagpole, also completely naked, while Julie perched on a tailgate and expertly lit her glass pipe. Zach drank deep from his flask during Mikey's show, offering sips to the giggling Stephanie. Finally reaching the top, Mikey loosed a yell of pure freedom across the darkened fields, reminding us all this was a night when we could be anything. Wrapped in our teenage selves, we did not stop to wonder who was buried atop that hill just a day's wagon ride from town. Not if there was once a village, a way stop for tired travelers, a small store with a post office inside, and a few homes that may have held church services when the traveling pastor came through. Before that, they built a sacred building. Before that was de-steepled. We never wondered who they erased or what happened there to erase them. We'd marked our way to this spot by a few green lights on farmers' garages, but the patchwork field said more about topography than ownership in a time when the price of farm equipment was too high for the yield. Did the remaining farmers hear us whizzing our foreign engines up the roaded road? Did our laughter roll down the hills as Derek and Zach toppled tombstones? Stones that honored people who lived 8 days or 93 years, whose names mirrored ours. Some of the fanciest stones worn wordless, the marble no match for the weather. Most had been buried here in the 1880s, but one dated 1987. Mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, and entire families interred in this forgotten patch of ground. The truth, although we did not want to see it then, was that there were no witches here, at least not en masse. No witches except us. Young women with no real magic beyond what nature gave us, and the knowledge that these young men would do anything to get us. We had only the will to weave our spells however we could, while we could, because all around us it was clear how short-lived that fascination would be, before we would be cast out as mothers or hags, used already, no one worth wanting. So we held our bodies virginal, even when they weren't, even as we danced naked in the moonlight, summoning power over those we'd brought out tonight and celebrating a moment we'd soon miss.
Thank you so much, Isla. I actually just met Isla at the first collection, and she's really indicative of what I hope for this event, is that we can create this community based on who we know and bring people in. That's why I like to call it a public club. It's also kind of a play on the idea that we're all dressed real nice, like we're at a private club. So now you know. Thank you so much, Isla. It was really, really, really beautiful writing, and I'm really happy that you were able to come tonight. And now, I'd like to introduce the National Poetry Series finalist, Johnny Horton, who teaches literature and creative writing at Seattle Central College. He also used to direct the University of Washington's Creative Writing Summer Program in Rome. He's published poems in Poetry Northwest, Notre Dame Review, City Arts Magazine, Los Angeles Review, and other magazines. And here with some poetry is Johnny Horton.
When I was in school, Ariel, it was tornadoes where I'm from, the Midwest. And now I'm in the Emerald City, so I wore my ruby slippers. And I'm going to click the heels. And I'm not going to say there's no place like home, because I don't want to end up in the Midwest. I'm going to say there's no place like Rome. There's no place like Rome. Especially now, because there's no Pope in Rome. It's just like the days of the Caesars. Anyhow, this first poem is called Labor, and it's based on a true story. And I wanted to write a poem that felt like walking backwards. So here it is. In Rome, where you can feel St. Joseph's pain, I found myself in the maternity ward, facing someone else's child as it wormed its way into this world I like to call my own. My monastery of sorts, where I meditate on mistakes, oversights an emperor might think large enough to vindicate exile, a solitary lifestyle, rife with skipping stones, projectiles, no fetching companion will return. Walk back, like all the stupid things I've said, insults I've left hanging in the air like halitosis, that anglicized Latin word used by Listerine to manufacture neurosis. The fear we don't work hard enough to hide our imperfections, all the common faults madmen use to compromise our convictions, to obscure the understanding that we can make love despite a world of problems we took no pleasure in creating. Thanks. Because my father's adopted, I think about legacy and lineage all the time. I'm obsessed with the mystery of those things. And according to Ancestry, I always thought I was all Northern European because that's what most of my family is. But according to Ancestry, I'm not. I've got about 20% of my DNA comes from the Iberian Peninsula, which also includes a part of North Africa and the western sort of coast of Italy, like Sicily and Naples. This poem takes place around the Bay of Naples. Incidentally, my father was adopted about 9 months after the holiday that Trump just made. So I don't know if he's what they used to call a war baby or not, but maybe. Anyway, this poem is called Sea Legs, and it takes place around the Bay of Naples, and there's a lot about fathers. I'll just say one last thing about it before I read it. There are two statues of Neptune and Triton. Triton is the son of Neptune, and they were discovered on the island of Capri in a sea cave called the Blue Grotto. And they may have belonged to the Emperor Tiberius, who was emperor when they nailed Jesus up on the cross, and also maybe had a thing for children. Anyway, sea legs. Someday, we'll be like the Roman statues of Neptune and Triton, discovered in a sea cave. We'll be like father and son, remembered for making waves. Ancient sons became tragic figures. This is why I prefer modern times to mythology. I'd rather blow my own horn than listen to old songs. Pliny the Younger understood eternity began with disaster. Residents of Pompeii would be remembered. Butterflies remember the worst sensations they felt as caterpillars. Frogs must regret the metamorphosis that ended their schooling. Otherwise, they wouldn't sing such mournful songs. Otherwise, they wouldn't make love for days. Maybe this is why mermaids look more balanced than fish heads on human legs. Maybe this is why we call the mackerel holy. Tiberius Caesar called the kids of Capri little fishes. Pliny said a mushroom cloud looked like an umbrella pine. Why should we make metaphors more than figures of speech? Why believe in truth outside of sensibility? I turned my head to your camera and I lost my place. 1 second. Why believe in truth outside sensibility? One way to find the sacred is not to look for it. In another model, you put on scuba gear, dive in the Etruscan Sea, find yourself facing divinity. It doesn't matter if volcanoes change the ocean floor. We love getting in hot water. It doesn't matter if we get in over our heads. We have no use for water wings. Odysseus listened to the sirens so he could tell the story. Anchises told Aeneas his mother was a goddess. Memory tells me I could swim before I learned to walk. This is how I know my mother came from the sea. I think of Homer on the tongue of Tiberius when he couldn't sleep, when he stayed awake thinking of children who wanted him dead. Sometimes the tomcat's antipathy makes sense. The channel catfish develops muscle where his brain should be, eats all the eggs he can while guarding the nest. Other fathers must sacrifice to reproduce. The paper nautilus loses his penis while making love. Anglerfish dissolve like sperm inside their mates. The most sophisticated men forget their names in orgasmic states. Maybe that's why we call on Jesus Christ. Maybe that's why fathers teach their children how to fish. Pliny the Younger says his uncle met a hail of burning pumice wearing nothing but a pillow for a helmet. Maybe that's why he looked like he was sleeping when he was dead. If I knew the language that named Vesuvius, I would tell you what it meant to Tiberius Caesar. I would tell you the difference between inferno and hearthfire. Sometimes it's better not to know your father. This was a little more fun. In aria ludica per cani, which means in the play area for dogs. Ludica, ludicrous, right? That's from Latin. But anyway, this is just from a walk I took in Rome, and I like dogs. No fence marks the dog park in the Borghese Gardens, but a collie herds a dozen mongrels, so they're walled in as long as the collie stays, focused on them instead of the maples he eventually leaves to mark. Outside the Aurelian Wall, I imagine the conquering Goths pissing on the bricks, but I know they didn't pose for portraits commemorating the sack because they preferred to capture human forms via arts that made strong arms, as opposed to the mosaics, marbles, and frescoes with which the Romans showed off the good life that today's barbarians capture with their smartphones. Why fight the crowds when we can download Instagram? Why go out when we're hemmed in by walls like imperial citizens who find comfort in flushing toilets? 1 minute I dream that speaking as a child of the invaders, who also has a heart that pumps the blood of conquered people, will give me the right to say something literal, like bricks and mortar, limit our ability to encounter the elegant, solutions to the problems that heighten our fears. The next, I see the Good Shepherd driving the pack without a word. Pietà is the name of this, which is Pietà, which is named after the statue. But it's about my mother, and it's about the parochial school that I went to and the confusion I had as a 5-year-old learning about Jesus for the first time. My kindergarten teacher scared the hell out of me when she said we'd live in heaven with Christ. On the same day she passed out the permission slips for going to the zoo. I went home confused, convinced if my parents signed that paper, I'd be a goner, abducted by this bearded stranger, this absentee father whose kingdom in the sky felt far from the family I knew. How long I imagined life without them, without crying, I can't recall. I remember my mother's explaining the conclusion I'd leapt to was false. Days later, I would, in fact, come home from visiting animals. I'd ape the human look of marmosets, lie on my mother's lap, make her laugh so hard she cried. If you've watched The Bear, you know that Italian Americans celebrate Christmas Eve with the Feast of the Seven Fishes. It's usually not as intense as it is in that episode of The Bear, if you've seen it, I don't know. But at any rate, I wrote this, I went into a catacomb where Saint Cecilia, who's the saint of music, was found and was buried. And there was a fresco on the wall. It was kind of faded, but Jesus was there, and there were 6 other dudes with him. There were 7, and in front of each of them was like a loaf of bread. So there was 7 loaves of bread, and also some fish, 7 fish. It's all that. It's Christian mysticism of some sort with numerology. I don't know what it all means, but this is called Feast of the Seven Fishes. And it's really a prayer in a way, or a question for God, I guess, which is interesting because I'm kind of an atheist. But anyway, it goes like this. I wish we had wine, because this is what we need for this Feast of the Seven Fishes. We need wine. If someone could turn water into wine that was actually here, that'd be nice. Anyway, here it goes. What you eat is what you are. Who says different is a liar. Jesus friended fishermen, though they kept on catching men. Tell me, where's the bait and switch? Father of the Eucharist, am I man or am I fish? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Johnny was our final reader tonight. I happened to meet Johnny when I was at Seattle Central College, and he was kind enough to put together a few misfits to put together a silly little magazine that we called Dust Jacket, and it was quite amazing, and somehow we never lost track, maybe because we were swimming like fishes together in Seattle. Yeah. Really cool stuff, Johnny. Really happy you're here, and thank you for that so much. So collections will be here on first Wednesdays for as long as Hugo House will have us. And you can see we have a beautiful lineup set up for June already. Thomas Constam, Rosa Singer, Kevin Kraft, Sarah Cannon, Amanda Knox, and Randy Shin, who is here tonight. And we'll have a couple of video visitors as well, one from Texas, Jalen Fisk, who writes speculative fiction, and we'll have another video poem from Maxfield Chandler. And I hope that you all can be here for that. And yeah, I guess that's it. If you are here and you are a writer and you'd like to be a part of this, this is a public club, and that's what these cards are all here doing, so that you can look at our webpage, which is linked to my website. You can get a hold of me and say, hey, I'd like to read, and I'll be like, great. So hope you all have a wonderful night. Thanks for being here.